Oh, and we're up. Okay, perfect. So hello, everybody. Welcome, and thank you all so much for joining us as we close out our week of virtual summer camp with this farewell panel. I'm Laura with Simon & Schuster Canada, and I will be your host today. So before we get started, I wanted to invite everyone to submit questions you might have that come up throughout the chat, or maybe you already have them, in the Q&A feature on Zoom here, and we'll be answering reader questions later on, so please feel free. And then now I cannot wait to introduce our fabulous panel of authors and dive into our discussion, so here we go. First up, we have Lindsay Wong, author of the best-selling, award-winning Canada Reads finalist and Hillary Weston Prize finalist memoir, The Woo Woo, How I Survived Ice Hockey, Drug Raids, Demons, and My Crazy Chinese Family. No big deal. My Summer of Love and Misfortune is her debut YA novel. It is on sale now, and we are so excited to have her with us, part of the SNS family. Okay, Lindsay, can you tell us about your book in 30 seconds or less? I'm not like timing you, but short.
No pressure, right?
Yeah.
So, My Summer of Love and Misfortune, it follows the misadventures of 17-year-old Iris Wang. She fails at high school, doesn't get into any universities, and her parents send her to Beijing to learn hard work and responsibility. But when she gets there, she ends up meeting family that she didn't know existed and falling for this hot Mandarin tutor. And things just spiral out of control, and Iris has to learn to rely on herself. It's a fun, summery, contemporary with lots and lots of food.
Yes, and it certainly spirals. It's a journey. Like I said, on sale now. Go buy it and read it and love it if you haven't already. Okay, and next up we have Kit Frick. She is a novelist, a poet, and the author of See All the Stars, All Eyes on Us, and her newest, I Killed Zoe Spanos, which goes on sale next week on June 30th. We're so excited. Kit, tell us about Zoe Spanos in 30 seconds or less.
Okay, so I Killed Zoe Spanos. Think YA Rebecca set in the Hamptons. When Anna confesses to playing a role in the death of a local teen, Zoe Spanos, she is charged with manslaughter and with concealing the body. But her confession is full of holes, and there's a local teen podcaster, Martina Green, who thinks something is up. Either what Anna did is a lot worse than what she confessed to police, or perhaps she's actually innocent. So Martina's the host of the podcast Missing Zoe, and she sets out to answer the questions, did Anna really kill Zoe? And so the question becomes, can Martina's podcast help solve this crime? Yeah.
It is such a journey, everybody. Like I said, it's out on Tuesday. I can't wait for everybody to read it. Oh, Kit, what did you receive today?
Oh, so I got some finished copies of the book featuring these gorgeous blue sprayed edges. So exciting.
It's so beautiful.
I know. I can't wait to see it in stores on Tuesday so soon.
Yay. Okay. Congratulations. So exciting. All right. And now we have Rachel Lynn Solomon, the author of You'll Miss Me When I'm Gone, Our Year of Maybe, and her latest, Today, Tonight, Tomorrow, which is on sale July 28th. Rachel, 30 seconds or less. Go.
Okay, so Today, Tonight, Tomorrow is a YA romantic comedy that follows rival overachievers who have hated each other for all 4 years of high school. And it follows them on the last day of senior year over the course of 24 hours as their relationship completely transforms, and they realize as they are competing in this senior class game that takes them all across Seattle, that maybe they don't actually hate each other as much as they thought.
Does the relationship transform? Indeed. This one, like I said, on sale July 28th. Okay, and now last but not least, we have Scindia Menon, the New York Times bestselling author of When Dimple Met Rishi, There's Something About Sweetie, Of Curses and Kisses, and many, many more, including our latest, 10 Things I Hate About Pinky, which is on sale July 21st. Okay, Scindia, your turn, 30 seconds or less.
Okay, I have my arc here. So 10 things, I almost said there's something about Sweetie because I have so many books that I cannot keep them all straight. But 10 Things I Hate About Pinky is the third book and final book in the Dimpleverse, which I am very sad about, but also having many emotions about. And it is basically a romantic comedy about what happens when a very rebellious and passionate social justice warrior, fake dates a uber responsible class nerd type of boy for the entire summer at her lake house in Cape Cod. And her whole thing is she has an agenda. She wants to show her mom that she is capable of dating a responsible boy. And what's in it for him is that he gets to do a really prestigious internship with her parents, who are both lawyers. If he, does this and it pulls it off without a hitch, the only problem is they both completely despise each other. And so it is quite the journey to pretend like they're in love.
Thank you. I don't think I knew it was the last Dimpleverse story.
I know. Very sad.
It's like the end of an era.
I know.
Okay, so now on to our discussion and our questions to start us off. Since we've got this virtual summer camp running all week, I've sort of thought of you guys as like our camp counselors. And so I need to know, did any of you ever attend summer camp? Who wants to begin?
Yes, I'll start because I feel like I was over camped as a child.
Oh.
I went to day camp, Bible camp, sleepaway camp, YMCA camp, overnight Girl Scout camp. I mean, like you name it, I went to camp. And you would think that I loved camp, seeing as how much I went to, and it was like the largest source of anxiety of my childhood. I was not a good camper. My favorite part of camp would be the big care packages that my mom would send me from home, and like opening those in my cabin and crying a little. I always thought I was going to love sleepaway camp. Like, it's not like my parents forced me into this. I was like excited every year and thought it was going to be great. And then I would remember when I got there that it was just this like social anxiety nightmare. But yeah, lots of camp, so much camp. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. That is so much camp. Personally, never been to camp a day in my life. So you've got camp for days.
That
Anybody
was
else?
me. I feel like I never went to any kind of camp ever growing up. Although I did like summer activities, like there was this place called Teen Line that I went to and volunteered every summer full time, which was basically like a crisis line that teens could call into, and you had like peer counselors, which I think is why I ended up going to college and grad school to become a therapist. But that was kind of my summer thing, but that's the only thing I remember doing over summer consistently.
Yeah, I am sort of like Kit in that camp gave me so much anxiety. And I think I went into it with the worst attitude, which was, I'm never going to see any of these people again. So why even bother making friends? And there was like my worst experience was, so I was a very shy, very introverted kid. And my parents thought, what better way to break Rachel out of her shell than sending her to an extreme sports camp. And it was like in the mountains in Washington State. I like cried the whole time. We had to do like rock climbing and whitewater rafting. I had to learn how to ride a unicycle, got the worst sunburn of my life. And that was enough to like make my parents finally stop sending me. They were very upset about that sunburn. I just like, I have like very clear, vivid memory of like how red my back was, but can no longer ride a unicycle. And I don't think it really helped. I'm still pretty shy.
That sounds like my nightmare.
It was
not gonna
horrible.
lie. Lindsay, any camp stories?
Did not get sent to camp, but I would have loved to as a kid, but I was sent to hockey camp. I don't know, I think my dad had the same idea. Like, I was a really shy, introverted, like overweight kid, and they were like, okay, you're gonna play ice hockey and you're going to assimilate into North American culture. And I refused to go, so he would like pay me like $7.99 an hour to play hockey, and it was sort of a disaster because all I did was kind of like skate around a little bit and like drink Gatorade. And they're like, you got to do a push-up and a sit-up, when they do like the dry, training. And yeah, it was not good. But, it was a disaster. But looking back, it was actually kind of funny.
I mean, it makes
money.
good writing material too.
It does, yeah.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. I didn't know any of this about any of you. So my next question is going to be for Rachel. In Today, Tonight, Tomorrow, we have Rowan and Neil, and they start off as enemies and build to something more, which we've established. So gotta say, love to see it. Why do you think readers love this storyline so much, and why did you want to write about it?
Yeah, I mean, enemies to lovers is just like complete catnip for me. Like that is just the number one thing that makes me want to pick up a romance novel or a YA romance. And I think it's just that there's such strong feelings, whether you hate someone or love someone. It's just like this intense burning thing like on either end of the spectrum. And what I really love exploring, because obviously with enemies to lovers, you know that they are going to eventually end up together, but I think the journey to get there is really fun, and the ways that you can like mess with your main character in terms of like, as an example, in Today, Tonight, Tomorrow, she will like, she's the love interest has a lot of freckles, and she remarks on a couple occasions that she like would spend so much time staring at him and trying to count how many freckles he had on his face. And it's like, you were staring at this guy and like and you have no idea that you are actually really into him. And just these sort of slight changes in how you view like, oh, I think he might like objectively be kind of cute. Like, I'm not interested in him, but like he's a decent looking human, and how that evolves to like, oh wait, I might be. So it's just a lot of fun.
Yeah, and it really is in Today's Tomorrow. One of my favorite, like in terms of like, she doesn't know, but then her best friends are like, oh, like Neil again. Oh, you got a text from Neil, and her best friends are like, Rowan, and she's like, no, gross. I love it. It's great. You did such a good job.
Thank you so much.
Okay, now I have another question for everybody. What is the best piece of advice you could give to your main character? Are we thinking, or are we being polite and like?
I'll start.
Okay.
Okay, so I have two main characters, Anna and Martina. So for Martina, who hosts the podcast, I would say first, be very conscientious of the fact that your podcast is reporting on real people and their real lives. And so proceed with care, which is a lesson that she has to deal with during the book. And also keep going, because the truth is closer than you think. And for Anna, I would say never talk to the police in an interview room without your lawyer or parent present. Girl. So this is advice for any teen that finds themselves brought into an interview situation with law enforcement. If you're a minor, always make sure you have a parent or guardian and lawyer there in the room.
Very solid advice. Lindsay, what advice would you give to Iris?
Well, Iris, she messes up a lot, and she's very, very flawed, and she's actually really ashamed about her behavior, and she tries to cover it up by shopping a lot. So I guess my advice would be that it's okay not to know what you want to do with your life, and it's totally okay to admit that you don't know how to fix your mistakes. Iris is someone who doesn't ask for help. She also doesn't really have any guidance, and so all sorts of trouble happens. So I think this is advice I'd give myself, and especially when I was a teenager.
Yeah, that's great advice too. Okay.
So in Today, Tonight, Tomorrow, Rowan, the main character, she wants to be a romance novelist, and she's just very caught up in this idea of like having this big grand romance, and like just in her head she has this vision of like how perfectly her life should go. And she realizes over the course of the book that like high school has maybe not gone according to plan. Neil is definitely not the guy that she thought she would be falling for. So my main piece of advice would be to like let go of this idea that everything needs to be perfect, and stop trying to plan and like overthink everything about the future, and just sort of live in the moment a little more.
Also great advice that I could have used in high school.
Yeah, me too. So I would say to Pinky to be a little more open-minded, which seems weird because she is social justice warrior, and she's very open-minded and progressive and all of those things. But I think also a lot of her actions are actually reactions, because she has this very buttoned up conservative lawyer mother, and she wants to show, kind of get a reaction out of this lady, and wants to connect in a way. But a lot of that leads to these very negative things that, maybe are not even in Pinky's best interest. And also, she thinks she would never date a guy like Samir, who is just so put together and so responsible and organized and everything she isn't. And of course, we all know how that's going to end up. So I would say be a little more open-minded.
Okay. Okay, where were all of y'all when I was in high school? Because that was some very solid advice. And high school Laura really could have used some of that. Okay, now I have a question for Lindsay. So you had mentioned that the things that Iris deals with, or the things you'd give her advice on, were really kind of advice for yourself. And I was going to say that Iris is sort of everything I remember about being a teen, from the way she speaks to acts and like obsesses over things that are like maybe not so important. So I was going to ask if you draw inspiration from your own teenage years, and it sounds like you do. So how was that journey, like reliving your own sort of high school to get this such an accurate portrayal for Iris?
I mean, I'm glad that, Iris comes across as a realistic teenager. I mean, in many ways, she's a lot more, I guess, upbeat than me. I was kind of like really grumpy and snarky. Like I was like Garfield meets like Blair Waldorf, like that was me as a teenager, but I still made a lot of mistakes. Yeah, they called me Attila the Hun in high school. So
Ooh.
yeah, that was my name. It was very, very nice. Anyway, so yeah, I had to kind of go through, like who I was as a teenager, but also at the same time, one of my day jobs, I work as a private college admissions consultant, which is like a fancy way of saying like writing tutor. And I work with teens every day. So I work, I spend a lot of time with them like after school and weekends. And a lot of my students are international students, and most of them don't want to study. I always get the ones who are like, I don't want to go to school. And so I think Iris kind of embodies that as she goes through my summer love and misfortune. And so in my day job, I end up, I chase a lot of students around, like they live in the Shangri-La Hotel in Vancouver, so I'm chasing them around, or I'm kind of bailing them out of trouble if they like crash their parents' car. So that's something I've drawn inspiration from in the book. And yeah, so being like a tutor is like sometimes an 18-hour job, and I end up eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner with my students, and I get to know everything about them, and I see their best and their worst moments. And so yeah, I get to see, really get to know how they think and act, and what they're obsessed with. So I guess you could say like Iris is a little bit of me and a lot of my students.
Yeah, no, everything you've just said makes so much sense. Having read the book, I'm like, oh, they live in a fancy hotel and they get chased by a tutor. Like seems, makes sense. Things are going together. Okay, thank you. And another question for the group. Do we see what I'm doing here? I'm alternating. So this one is pop culture related. Are there any recent teen reads or movies or TV shows that you've really enjoyed and would recommend or wouldn't recommend? That's also important.
Can you just imagine one of us coming up here and like not recommending some Simon and Schuster book?
Okay, so maybe not books then. Yeah. All books are great.
No, a book that I read that's coming out in August, but is a really great summer read. It's Now That I've Found You by Christina Forrest. And it follows a sort of up-and-coming actress who had a viral video that is sort of destroying her career. And her grandmother is this very beloved old Hollywood actress, but she's become kind of a recluse. And she goes to stay with her grandmother to try to get her grandma's permission to reprise her grandma's most famous role in like a remake. And her grandma disappears. And there's this cute musician boy, and it's just sort of this like love letter to New York and like art, and it's just really fun. If anyone's read The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, this is like the closest to a YA version of that book that I've ever read. Like, it really gave me Evelyn Hugo vibes, and yeah, it's wonderful. It's coming out in August.
Oh, that's amazing. Who's next?
I'll go because I can't stop shouting about this book from the rooftops. But I recently had the chance to read A Song Below Water by Bethany C. Morrow, which just came out a couple weeks ago. And at least here in the US, it hit the indie bestseller list, which was very exciting. But it is so good. It is about Black sirens and mermaids in Portland. It's like this alternate universe, Portland, Oregon, that has all of these like fantastical mythical creatures like gargoyles and things like that. And it also addresses the issue of racism against Black people, but it does it in like this incredible fantasy setting. It's so good and so layered, and it's not at all a heavy book, which is, it's nice to kind of read about racism and things like that also in a setting that's like fantasy. And I think Bethany did just such a great job of weaving those two things together. So I highly recommend that.
Amazing. I love the idea of light because it's summer and the world, but also tackling of serious issues. I love that can be combined. Lindsay, anything to recommend?
Well, I'm just catching up on all my reading, but I've been listening to a lot of audiobooks lately. I have Tanya Bataju's, Kings, Queens, and In-Betweens, which is awesome. And I recently finished Holly Black's The Cruel Prince series. I just like binge listened to it. And, The Diviners is always fun. And also, I started watching Katie Keene. I don't know, is it a CW show? I'm not sure, but it's, it's very much like, being in New York and being young again,
Oh, I will have to look that up. I'm horrible at like being caught up on TV shows and movies. My colleague Rebecca could attest. Every time she's like, have you seen? I'm like, no, girl, no. So I'm going to add that one to my list. And then maybe I can one up Rebecca.
So I have a backlist title to recommend that I just read. I am a huge Stephanie Keene fan. I've read almost all of her books, but I had never read her debut, Charm and Strange. And I just finished it a couple nights ago. And if you were looking for a book to absolutely eviscerate you, read Charm and Strange. That's all I'm going to say about it. It is a really, really dark psychological contemporary YA thriller, and it is wonderful. And on another thriller note, but completely different tonally, I have been binging Elite on Netflix, which is a Spanish language YA thriller TV show, and it's at this elite boarding school in Madrid, and there are 2 seasons out. It's a murder mystery. It's super soapy, but also tackles some teen issues in a like very compelling way, and there are more seasons coming out, and I'm totally into it.
Okay, noted. Again, I'm going to have to add all of these things to all of my lists because I don't have enough to read or watch already, of course. Thank you all so much. So now I have a question for Scindia. So you've mentioned that Pinky is a social justice warrior, and I wanted to know, what do you hope readers can take away from Pinky's own learning moments and her journey with activism, because so many teens and people today are really turning to their own progressive pursuits?
Yeah, I wrote this book 2 years ago, I think. And so even at that time, it was when we were all having the conversation about teens, the activism they were doing, speaking up about climate change and school shootings. And of course, now we have Black Lives Matter and all of these other issues that are constantly a thing, like also about teens speaking out against J.K. Rowling for some of the transphobic comments she's made lately. I feel like teens are always at the forefront, like doing this work, and they really shouldn't have to be. but also they're so passionate and they're so intelligent and fired up about these things, which is amazing to see. So for me, I think the big thing with social justice and championing causes is always also taking care of yourself, which I think that Pinky learns to do in the course of the book. But certainly something she struggles with is not really paying attention to the things that are maybe going on internally for her. So that's something that I am a huge proponent of, is self-care for people, especially the people who are, fighting the hardest and on the front lines and speaking up, especially at such a young age. So that's kind of my thoughts on those things.
That's awesome. I think I agree. Self-care is so important right now. Like, even as someone who's not on the front lines, but is sort of doing what I can, it can be exhausting. It's so overwhelming with everything that's happening, and it's all very important and needs to be paid attention to. But I also have to remind myself that it's okay to take a step back and read a book or watch a movie and sort of let yourself breathe. And that's, I think, very important. Yeah.
It's all about refilling the well.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, awesome. And now I have a question for Kit. So I've mentioned before, I Killed Zoe Spanos. What a ride, this book. Like I said, on sale on Tuesday. Everybody read it. I read all of these books, but Kit's is on sale on Tuesday, and we're so excited for her. So I was on the edge of my seat the entire time, constantly trying to figure it out, and then thinking I had it, and then not having it, and then like plot twist, plot twist, plot twist. You did it so well. How'd you do that? What are the key elements to writing such a good thriller?
Oh, wow. Okay.
No pressure.
Right, no pressure. So here is the secret recipe. Just kidding. So obviously there are many different types of mysteries and thrillers, and so there are many different key elements depending on the book. There's not one magic formula, but I will tell you about a couple of the things that I played around with for I Killed Zoe Spanos. So one is that nearly every character has a secret in this book. And I watched Safe on Netflix while I was working on this book. It's a Harlan Coben Netflix series. And the opening episode to that is kind of a masterclass in all the characters having a secret and how that can really work to build, both your suspect list and also tension in the novel. So all the characters have secrets and have compelling reasons to keep those secrets. Another element that I played around with is the timelines in the book. It's written in then and now timelines, so it unfolds both in the summer wherein Anna is nannying in the Hamptons, and then also about 3 months later in the fall when she has confessed to manslaughter and concealing the body, and she is being held in a juvenile detention center back in Brooklyn, where she's from, awaiting trial. So there are two timelines playing out, and then there's also the podcast narrative that is interwoven throughout the book. And that's actually kind of a third timeline, because the podcast begins before the novel starts, closer to the time that Zoe disappeared, and then it picks up again after Anna's confession, when there's new material for Martina to work with and put out more episodes. So those interwoven timelines also work to create tension and suspense throughout the novel. And I would say the third thing is I really worked to create a layered mystery in this book. There's, of course, the driving question of who done it, what happened to Zoe, who killed her, what were the circumstances, why, etc. But that's not the only mystery in the novel. There are a whole bunch of layers to it. And when you get to the novel's final act, those last few chapters, you really peel back all these layers of the mystery. So I think readers will have the experience that even if they've maybe figured out an element or two throughout the course of reading, I can almost guarantee that you will not have figured out everything, and there are going to be twists and surprises in that conclusion that will keep you turning pages. So having that multi-layered mystery was really, really fun to play around with, and I think is really driving the suspense in this book.
Yeah, like I said, plot twist, plot twist, plot twist. Like,
get ready.
Yes, so good. Thank you. Also, I feel like you just gave us the secret recipe. So,
I mean,
thank you.
yeah, go forth. I mean, there's so many, like every thriller I read has its own secret recipe. And so part of the fun of being a reader as well as a writer of mysteries and thrillers is trying to figure out how the author made it work. And I love it when I'm surprised.
Yeah, me too. Okay, thank you. So before we go on to our audience questions, because we've been getting some rolling in, I have one last question that is perhaps the most important and the one that I am the most personally invested in, and that is, what is your go-to writing snack? Who's first?
Can it be a beverage?
Yeah, sure.
Because I hate eating while I'm writing because my fingers get messy. But it's this right here. It's an iced green tea from Starbucks, and it has no sweetener, so I don't get all hopped up on sugar. But it is so good because it has just the right amount of caffeine, and you can put lemon in it, and it's delicious.
I miss Starbucks so much. And I'm in Toronto, and things are slowly opening back up, but I haven't had Starbucks since like March. It's a small thing, but
it is hard, yeah. And this is a very rare treat. I make these at home. It's very easy. You just brew up green tea, and then you stick it in the fridge and put a bunch of ice cubes in there and a little bit of lemon squeezed in, and it's the exact same thing. So,
life hack.
I will piggyback off of that because my go-to writing snack is also caffeine. My two caffeines of choice are cold brew iced coffee, which I also make at home, and in the winter I like this Bigelow French vanilla hot tea with milk. Those are my two writing fuels. I also like Smart Pop, the cheesy popcorn stuff. But like Sandhya said, it that powdery stuff gets all over your fingers, and so it does not pair well with the keyboard. So it's usually like a writing break snack. But yeah, caffeine.
Yeah, my snack is a beverage as well. I'm very much missing my usual routine is writing at a local coffee shop, and it's actually a chocolate shop, and they make like homemade truffles. And so if I'm like very proud of my writing progress that day, I'll get one, or I will get it as like a motivator, and I'll just put it at like the edge of the desk or the edge of the table. I'm also, that was not a beverage, but the beverage that I am most into is chai, and since they've been closed, I asked one of the baristas. I've been going there for years, and I'm friends with the baristas at this point. They all know about my books. I asked what the chai was. I ordered some, and now I have been making it myself at home while I'm writing. And it's just like a Pavlovian response. Like this particular flavor really gets the inspiration going.
I love it. Lindsay, do you have a drink or a snack or both?
Oh gosh, I love caffeine, so in any form. Bubble tea, I love bubble tea. I've been making homemade bubble tea in the summer with like taro because it's it's hot, and ice. I think I'll eat anything like in a box or a bag. Like I'm not picky. But if I'm eating like Chicago mix, I'm like eating with one hand and typing with the other because it gets all over the keys and it's really hard to clean up.
Wow, what a trend. Well, I mean, I asked this question and I'm so personally invested because in Simon & Schuster Canada, in our Toronto office, we are dangerously close to a bulk barn. And as the marketing team, we make multiple weekly trips, you might say, to the bulk barn for mostly sweets, sometimes savory. And it's one of the things I miss the most right now about having an office to go to.
Wait, what's a bulk barn?
Oh, it is a Canadian like bulk food store. Basically, they have just giant bins of candy, also like nuts and flour and things for baking, and that's That's all they do is
Oh
they
my gosh,
just
I
sell.
want that.
I
know.
How do we like franchise one of them?
Yeah,
One
bring
here.
it to Pittsburgh. Bring it to
I have to
Pittsburgh.
say, the marketing team may or may not have looked into franchising. It's, it's a little bit expensive, but we love it so much.
my
We're like, what if we had our own personal bulk barn? It's fine. We dream big. We dream big. That's what
I
marketing's all
love
about. Okay, thank you for indulging me in that. And thank you for sharing your delicious drinks. And thank you for, I love that you can all make them at home now. The things we've learned. Okay, so audience questions. So for those of you watching, thank you so much for submitting your questions as we've chatted here. We also had some people submit their questions when they registered, so I'm going to try and do as many as I can. I'm so sorry if we don't get to all of them. So first, and I'm sure this is the most burning question, what are you working on next?
As we all stare at each other.
I'm sorry, was this like a tricky question?
No.
I'll go, I guess. Unless you want to go, Sandhya.
Oh, no, go ahead, Rachel.
Okay, sure. So I have 2 books out next year. The first is an adult romantic comedy called The X Talk. And it's a romantic comedy set in the world of public radio about 2 co-hosts. And that was a lot of fun. It's coming out from Berkeley in February. And then my next YA romantic comedy is coming out next summer. And it is about a teen wedding harpist who is super jaded by love and a cater waiter who's a hopeless romantic who just keep kind of clashing and flirting across various weddings over the course of the summer. So 2 kind of fun rom-coms.
That's amazing.
Kind of fun, hopefully. I'm terrible at promoting my own work.
No, I can't wait for your adults. So Rachel
thank you. Me too for yours.
Yeah.
Yes, nice segue.
Cool. I'm so excited because this our books in July come out 10 days apart or something, and then we have our first debut adult romantic comedies come out in February next year, so that's very exciting.
Yeah, we're just piggybacking on each other each time. It's great.
We're mind melding. You're sharing covers, let me see yours. But yeah, so mine also is an adult romantic comedy, comes out in February of next year. It's called Makeup Breakup, and it's about 2 app developers / CEOs one of whom is her app is all about bringing people together and giving them a second chance at love, and her rival, his app is all about, it's basically called the Uber for breakups, where you can download the app and send this Terminator over to your significant other to break up with them for you. So it's a classic enemies to lovers kind of thing. 18 plus only. It's very steamy. Okay, now that that's out of the way, I also have the second book in the St. Rosetta's Academy series of Princes and Promises comes out next year. The release date is a little bit in flux, so hopefully I'll be able to talk about that a little bit more soon, but it's a Frog Prince retelling, and it is it's very exciting. I love makeover stories, and this is a makeover story where the boy gets made over and gets social trading classes and all that stuff, so I'm very excited.
Oh my god, that is an immediate all these alarms went off in my head. I'm like, I need that right now.
We like all the same tropes, so yeah.
Lindsay, are you working on anything?
Yeah, I think I should write a hockey novel about camp. I don't know, maybe I should.
Yeah.
I'm working on another YA novel about this teen who has OCD and anxiety, and I'm also working on a collection of immigrant horror stories. So it's going to be interesting and weird, maybe. Yeah, I just have to get it all. I have to finish it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's easy, right?
Yeah, no big deal.
Oh, I think I'm up.
Yes.
So I am working on a new YA thriller for Simon & Schuster. It is likely to be out in early 2022, but we don't know quite yet. And I'm still at the concept stage, so I can't really tell you anything about it yet. But there will be another YA thriller coming in the not too distant future. And then I've been working on an adult market thriller forever, but that is still at the, like, it is at the pre-submission stage of its life. So again, I cannot share any details, which is sad, but I do have things in the hopper, so stay tuned.
Thank you. Well, as you've told us, you have a great recipe for thrillers, so I'm sure whatever is coming down the pipe is going to be great. Okay, we also have, oh, here's a good one. Why do you think it's important for POC readers to see themselves in YA literature? Anybody?
Lindsay, do you want to take that one first and then I'll go next?
Okay, sure, why not? Well, I mean, growing up, I did not have any YA literature where I saw myself being represented. I think there was like only Claudia from the Babysitter's Club, or, you know, Cho Chang in Harry Potter. And there weren't any books that featured, you know, a main character that was POC. And it kind of sent the message that, you know, I wasn't important or complex enough to star in my own narrative. Yeah, when I was growing up, there wasn't any like weird, quirky Asian girls in YA. And I think for a lot of young people, story is what, you know, shapes our identities and, you know, who we might want to be as people. Didn't I think Joan Didion, she said, like, you know, we tell ourselves like stories to live. And, you know, and in my own experience, I think, you know, stories are supposed to like sustain us. And not seeing myself in YA literature, I didn't really want to read as a teen. But I also think that we need a lot of like fun, lighthearted books with POC. So it's not always about trauma and really serious issues. So for me, I think it's really important to have access to a variety of diverse narratives, right? So different types of readers can have a story that resonates with them and represents them. You know, it's not enough, at least, to assume that like one POC character's story represents that one ethnicity or that minority group. I think, you know, we are having conversations and, you know, publishing, and, you know, we are making, I guess, we're moving forward, but I think that there's a long way to go. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. It's one of my most annoying things when I hear like, oh, we already have a blank book. You know, like, what does that mean? We can't have more than one blank book? Like, what, you know, why is that a thing? And I think that publishers are definitely getting a lot better about it now. But we still, like Lindsay says, we have so far to go. And one thing that was interesting for me as a writer too, speaking, I mean, Lindsay spoke beautifully about the reading aspect of it and not seeing yourself as a reader. But growing up, I had so many books in my house. My parents were both big readers, and my sister, who was 6 years older, was also a big reader. But all of our books were, none of them were by Indian people or Indian American people. So it was like very interesting way for me to feel like nobody really wanted a story from people like me. And that's kind of the message that I took away from all of that. For the longest time, I was like, well, you know, writing is for like other people, not for Indian people, or not for, you know, people who look like me or have names like mine. So that was also from the other side. I think it's important for publishers to acquire people of color and people of different marginalizations, whatever those might be, because like when you see yourself as a storyteller, you know, that's when you feel empowered too, is like you have something interesting and important to say that other people will want to read.
Sure.
Thank you. I thank you both for sharing that. I agree that, you know, publishing, we're working on it, but we've got further to go. And I'm so glad we have writers like you guys on our list that can help us bring forward, and hopefully we're bringing on more and doing what we can. Rachel or Kit, did you want to have any contribute to that?
I'll just add that I think it's also so important to normalize for white teen readers reading stories that are not just about white people. So that's not quite the responding to the question, but you know, when I was growing up as a white teen, everything I read in school, with very, very few exceptions, were about white folks. And so we really need to broaden those reading horizons for white teens as well. There should be no, norm that books that are taught in schools are focused on white teenagers, white people.
That I just want to really quick piggyback on that, because that's such a great point and like something I could talk about all day. But I recently tweeted about that because I cannot tell you how many comments I get like, I love your book so much, I recommend them to my Indian students. And I'm like, you know what? You could recommend them to all your
everybody.
Students.
Hello.
Yeah, it's such a great way to build empathy. And also my books are not about like the struggle, trademark. And so like, it's great to see marginalized people just having fun, falling in love, and it helps white readers kind of put themselves in the place of the person of color, like people of color have been doing all along, like imagining ourselves as the white main characters, and everybody should be able to do that. It's such an important thing for people to do. But yes, great point, Kit.
Yeah, I mean, everyone already kind of spoke so beautifully about this, but what Sandhya said about like, we already have a blank book for, kind of any minority group, like the fact is no one has ever been told we already have a white book. And like, I think that just very simply like illustrates how kind of the disparity. I mean, many things illustrate it, but yeah, no one's ever said that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, thank you all. This is, like I said, this is an important conversation, and thank you for helping contribute to it. Okay, so one of the questions we have that has come in while we've been chatting, which sort of could maybe piggyback off of this, is what was your favorite book as a child? So like Lindsay and Scindia, you just mentioned there weren't necessarily books that spoke to you as a child, but if there were, love to hear it. You're also polite. I'm just waiting for.
Go ahead, Rachel. I feel like I've been talking a lot.
Oh, sure. So the one that I always go back to is the Princess Diaries series. I just wanted to be Meg Cabot. I followed her blog. She like would write about having Lyme disease. I like followed her whole journey with it. And yeah, I just loved those books because they treated every tiny anxiety or like minor issue that came up in a teen's life as this huge big thing, because that's what it feels like. Like it feels like this massive either horrible or wonderful thing that's happening to you. And her books were just so comforting, and it took me a long time to get back to viewing reading as something that can be comforting, because like in high school I was like, I'm only going to read serious white man books because those are the books that everyone says have like literary merit. So I didn't like find romance novels again for so long, and when I did, I was like, oh yeah, remember how much I used to love Meg Cabot, and like I was ashamed of that because I didn't want anyone to judge me for having like, tastes that were kind of the way that like I think a lot of women are shamed for liking things that are not as like serious. I'm like really overusing the quotes here. But yeah, I just love like the comfort and the frothiness of a Meg Cabot book.
Kit.
Okay.
Oh, look at that. You unmuted.
Hi, I did. So I was obsessed with the Babysitter's Club. That was the first series that I like really, really connected to as a like late childhood pre-teen. And as a teenager, early teenager, I loved the Caroline B. Cooney books, like The Face on the Milk Carton and Whatever Happened to Janie. There were not like YA thriller mystery wasn't really a big thing when I was growing up yet. There was a lot of horror. R.L. Stine was huge, Christopher Pike, like those novels were like, if you went to the teen section in the bookstore, it was all horror. And I was and still am a big scaredy cat despite being a thriller author. So I don't do well with horror. It gives me nightmares. But yeah, so I loved the Caroline B. Cooney novels. And then as an older teen, I was really into, again, like there wasn't a lot of YA yet, but I did love adult novels with teen characters, like The Virgin Suicides by Jeffrey Eugenides. That was a book that really, really resonated. The memoir Girl Interrupted was another like really impactful book that I remember. I loved A Clockwork Orange. Again, like I don't remember if he's a teenager or young or like a young adult, but yeah, so I was drawn to dark stuff, surprise, surprise, after my start with the Babysitter's Club. And yeah, I sought out adult books that featured teens or very young adults. And I'm now super jealous of the teens that have like such a huge choice in their YA reading.
Lindsay?
I mean, I didn't really read a lot of YA as a teen. I remember Evelyn Lau's, Diary of a Street Kid. It's a memoir, and that really resonated with me because it was about a young Asian girl, living with, the stifling, oppressive parents, and she ends up, going on the street, and she's troubled. And I think for me, it was so great to actually see representation. That was like kind of the first time, like, oh, I see myself in literature. And I remember my teacher in grade 10, she handed me, Amy Tan's The Joy Luck Club. And that was also a really interesting like look at Asian culture at that time. And so for me, just having, being represented in literature, that was, I would say, like, those are the books that I go back to.
For me, I was reading Stephen King when I was like 9. So very age inappropriate of my parents to not police that. But it was great. I loved it. I felt like I'm a huge horror fan. Weirdly, like the opposite of Kit, I write rom-coms, but I love dark stuff. And yeah, I read everything that Stephen King wrote, and I feel like he was the first influence on me, even as someone who liked writing that young. I was like, I just love what he did with characters and how he built tension without actually maybe even showing you too much on the page. And I could tell even at that age that was like master storytelling, and loved it. As a teen, I really loved Kate Chopin. The Awakening was like my first introduction to her, and it was my first like feminist literature. And I think it was my school librarian who introduced me to it. But I remember like all these like little bells going off in my head, and I was like, I need more of this.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, we are just about out of time. So I have one last like rapid fire question. We need short and sweet here. So this comes from one of the audience members, and they want to know if you could recommend just one YA like fluffy contemporary other than any of the ones in this panel. What would it be?
To All the Boys I Loved Before by Jenny Han.
So good.
I took the easy one.
Yeah, you really did.
I just read Marissa Cantor's debut, What I Like About You. I'm sorry if I'm stealing yours, Rachel. And it was delightful.
It's the definition of fluff. It's literally about cupcakes. It's so good.
Yes, it's so good and yummy.
Yeah.
I feel like it's such a problem that the only books I can think of aren't out yet. Is that okay?
Oh, no, yeah, let's recommend it for the future.
Okay, sure. Once Upon a Quinceañera by Monica Gomez Hira. It comes out in March, and she was a mentee of mine, and it is super fun. It's a Miami set, like summer book, and there's just tons of like hijinks and romance. It's really great.
Awesome.
All I can think of right now, because I'm looking at you, is When Dimple Met Rishi.
Oh, which is right over here in my stack of books.
And on my to-be read list, I really want to read I'll Be the One by Lila Lee. That looks amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. I love a good rapid fire. All great books. Love it. Okay, so the last thing we have is a prize draw. So as you may know, everybody who registered for this panel today was automatically entered into a draw. How do you know if you're registered? You're here. You had to register to get the link. So everybody who's watching us, you're registered. So I've got names in my little cup here, and I'm going to draw them. We have 4 different prizes, each featuring one of our books from today and some special surprise gift like goodies to go with it. So you have to receive your prize to know what it is. So here we go. First up, we have the My Summer of Love and Misfortune prize pack. Oh my gosh, they're dropping everywhere. And this one goes to Emily Smith. Okay, so it's kind of like anticlimactic that nobody's here to be like, yay, but yay. And how this will work is we'll send you an email at the email address you registered with. So don't call us, we'll call you. We'll get this prize to you. So, and then next up, we have the I Killed Zoe Spanos prize pack. Oh, that one fell out again. Got it, okay. To Lisa Zhu. Yay! Okay, and then Today, Tonight, Tomorrow. Dig out the bottom. This one is for Ashley Dyers, or Deers. I'm so sorry if I said it wrong. Yay! Okay, and then last but not least, 10 Things I Hate About Pinky, our final Dimpleverse novel, which I just found out about. Well, just found out it was the last. This one is for Caitlin Mauder. Yay! Thank you so much, authors, for helping me celebrate there. Okay, so congratulations to all of our winners. Thank you everybody for watching and joining in and following along with our camp all week on Instagram. Thank you to my fabulous panel of authors for being so wonderful and having so much fun here. And that'll wrap it up. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Yay! Thank you for joining us.
Thank you guys.
Bye.
Happy reading.
Yes, happy reading. Bye.